Matt Olson has been absolutely dominant in 2023, clubbing a major league leading 54 home runs while also driving in 139 runs and leading the National League with a .604 slugging percentage. His ability to not only stay on the baseball diamond, he's played in all 162 games both this year and last year, and the fact he's surrounded by stars in Atlanta helped propel the Braves to a #1 overall seed in the National League and home field advantage throughout the entire playoffs in 2023. Most people are familiar with how Matt Olson ended up on the Braves as well. After the 2021 season, Freddie Freeman, the longtime first baseman for the Braves, hit free agency, and there was mutual interest on both sides, but it seems like just through some miscommunication and a game of telephone where information doesn't get from one party to another, Freeman ended up with the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Braves were left with a huge hole at first base as they entered a very large contention window. In stepped Matt Olson, a star first baseman who had already had an All-Star Game appearance and finished 8th in MVP voting the year before, along with 2 Gold Gloves and a top 5 Rookie of the Year finish back in 2017. He was the face of the A's at this point after they had a huge sell-off, and people knew that he was going to be the next guy to go, unfortunately. Now, that's not to say the Braves got him for free. Obviously, someone of this pedigree had to come with a lot of prospects attached, and the Braves definitely gave up at the time what was seen to be a lot. But now that we've had about 2 years to really go and digest this trade and see how these people have panned out, it's interesting to go and look back and see that now Atlanta is in the heat of the playoff race, going against the Phillies in the NLDS by the time of this recording, while the Oakland A's are at the bottom of the league, fighting for the #1 draft pick in the MLB lottery. It's crazy to see just how far apart these two teams are, and that makes it really interesting to see just how this trade has panned out. The A's tried to get their core for the future, while the Braves tried to get that missing piece as they push towards the World Series in 2023. So in this video, we're going to look at this trade from the Braves and the A's perspective and see just how important Matt Olson is to the Braves and how valuable the prospects are the A's have gotten back. Of course, before we go ahead and do that, please go ahead and hit that baseball in the bottom right corner to subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot and helps me grow. And if you do change your mind and figure out that you don't like what I post, you can always unsubscribe at a later date. Without further ado, please go ahead and watch the rest of the video and see just how impactful Matt Olson and the prospects the A's got back have been for their respective teams. At the end of 2021, it was obvious that the Braves were taking the steps they needed to go and be a successful contender in the National League for years to come. They already had a star-studded roster of Austin Riley, Ronald Acuna Jr., Ozzie Albies, and now you're replacing Freddie Freeman, a superstar first baseman, with another superstar in Matt Olson. They were just retooling with a stacked rotation that already featured the likes of Max Fried and countless other reliable arms. You add in now, a couple years later, that they have Spencer Strider and a bunch of other really quality arms coming up behind them. I'm looking at you, AJ Smith-Shawver, and other people like Alan Winans, and potentially even next season, Hurston Waldrop, their first-round pick this year. The Braves are loaded for success now and in the coming years, so they're not going away. And Matt Olson's been a big part of that resurgence, and some might argue he's even played better than Freddie Freeman this year, who's had a phenomenal year himself. I wouldn't be shocked to see both of them sitting, watching themselves see Ronald Acuna Jr. win the MVP award, and each of them sitting second and third this year. But just how good has Matt Olson been in a Braves uniform? I mean, you've been watching the highlights for the past 3.5 minutes. You know well enough that he is a superstar, but that really doesn't do him justice without looking at some of the numbers. Let's first begin in 2022. As with most power-hitting players, his batting average wasn't phenomenal in 2022. A .240 is nothing to write home about, but it's not great, especially for an elite player. His on-base percentage of .325 was certainly an improvement, but wasn't necessarily where it should be for someone who should be considered a star. His OPS plus was a 120 after an 802 OPS, but as a first baseman, you're kind of expected to be an above-average hitter simply because it's a less defensively demanding position. That's no disrespect to Matt Olson. He is a plus defender, although that has receded a little bit in past years. He still is a quality first baseman, but he just doesn't have that same defensive upside now as he goes into his age 30 season in 2024, as he did when he was, 22, 23, 24 at the beginning of his career in Oakland. And in the year they got rid of the shift, the lefty put on an absolute clinic. Although he most likely won't win MVP, that'll probably go to his teammate Ronald Acuna Jr. There are only 4 players who are really even in the conversation for NL MVP, and the fact that Olson's one of them, alongside Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and the aforementioned outfielder Acuna, there's no doubt that he had a stellar season. You're seeing the stats on the screen now. He has a 283 batting average, which is over 40 points above what it was last year. His on-base percentage rose by over 60 points, and his slugging by over 125 points. That is huge, astronomical. And the gains that he got, yes, the shift obviously helped, but he was a great hitter, and he just saw the ball a little bit better. He was able to make more contact, have more velocity coming off the ball. That exit velocity was higher this year than it was before. And it's also just being back home. He was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and went to high school in nearby Lilburn. So it makes sense that after he kind of got back to being at home, he just feels comfortable. Granted, he was always a good player in Oakland, but maybe he just found his stride being close to home. Now, given that he is somewhat older, he's going into his age 30 season next year, as I mentioned. We'll see how that age curve starts to hit him, but he does have a lot of potential, and he's locked up for a long time. The Braves have him through at least their age 35 season in 2029 for $22 million a year. With a club option the next year in 2030, his age 36 season for $20 million a year. I think he sticks out that contract, and honestly, I wouldn't be shocked to see him retire a Brave, and potentially, if he can keep up this pace, maybe we're talking Hall of Fame in a little bit. He did start a little bit late and really took a little bit of time to kind of get up to speed, but you never know what could happen. He is a dynamite player, and the Braves are going to want him in their lineup for a long time to come, and fortunately for them, he's going to be there. Now, who did the A's get in this deal? If we're talking about a superstar in Matt Olson, it makes sense that the A's got some big ticket prospect back, right? Well, at the time they did. You look at who they got 2 top 75 prospects according to MLB Pipeline from the Braves, along with a couple pitchers who seem to have a lot of potential in a former first rounder and a fast riser who was taken in the 19th round. We'll talk a little about each one first, but let's talk with the big ticket names and go down from there, because as it turned out, maybe one of the big tickets isn't the best piece in this deal that the A's ended up getting. The acquisition of Shea Langeliers not only ushered in a new prospect for A's fans to be really excited about, but also marked what was likely to be the end of the Sean Murphy era, and we saw that a year later when he got traded to the Atlanta Braves as well. Langeliers was a top 50 prospect according to MLB Pipeline, and both Pipeline and Baseball America had him as the second-ranked prospect in the Atlanta Braves system at the time of this deal. He was MLB ready, which is what the A's wanted, although it was a little curious as to why they wanted a lot of MLB-ready talent, given that it looked like they needed to go into a huge rebuild if they were going to go and compete anytime soon, as they're losing some of their veteran pieces like Matt Olson, Matt Chapman, soon to be Sean Murphy, Frankie Montas, a lot of names there that had a lot of star power. That's what the A's went for, and Langeliers would seem to be the catcher of the future in that regard. Langeliers was the first-round pick of the Braves in the 2019 MLB draft and was the second catcher taken that year behind the obvious number one pick, Adley Rutschman, so the pedigree was there. People knew he was the second-best catcher, and his defense was his calling card. He has incredible arm strength, elite, as most people would say, and his fielding and framing behind the dish was phenomenal as well. He was always on the Braves' radar as someone who could be a fast riser. He was on their taxi squad during 2020, which meant should a player get COVID or injured, he was on the pool of replacements that could get called up to replace them, which, although there were a decent number of first-round picks that made that jump, people would not have been shocked to see Langeliers called up if a catcher got hurt, especially because catching is such an important position. And if you have someone with a good repertoire with pitchers and can frame pitches well, that is incredibly valuable. He also projected to be a league average hitter as well, which is not something you often see out of a catcher. Although he is a bit slow, which again, you do see that with catchers, he has the hit tool to be successful and has some power to back it up. In his first full season in 2021, he hit 22 home runs in Double-A, which is really impressive given the jump from Single-A or High-A to Double-A is often considered the most difficult of all the minor leagues. He had a lot of potential, and that's probably why the A's had him so high on their target list. To have a catcher which needs a lot of break days and having good catching depth meant that you have someone who could be a defensive-minded player who can contribute on offense and be impactful at the major league level. Granted, Langeliers is still young. Right now, he's only 25 years old, but that offensive production hasn't really matched what scouts really had hoped for so far in the major leagues. He was a midseason call-up in 2022, and as you see on the numbers below, he didn't blow it up on the offensive side of the ball. Now, that being said, his bat has always been a little bit behind his glove, and he has been a solid defender, so that was never really a concern, but he didn't throw out as many guys as people expected. He only threw out 16% of all batters. That's 16 stolen bases to 3 caught stealings on the year, so there was a little bit of concern about maybe his arm isn't as good as we think it is, and maybe the pop time isn't there. But it was only a 40-game sample size, so people weren't quick to jump to conclusions, and there was obviously some variability about what could happen, so it wasn't the end of the world, and his 2023 proved that it really was a blip in terms of his defensive metrics. Even with bigger bags and a lot more players trying to steal bases and making it easier to steal bases, his caught stealing percent nearly doubled from 2022 to 2023, now sitting at a clean 31% and being 10% above league average caught stealing percentages. It's obvious that he made adjustments in the offseason to go and deal with this: faster pop times, quicker releases, all the fun stuff that catchers have to learn on the defensive side of the ball that make their job just that much harder. Offensively, those adjustments didn't translate. His batting average was a little bit lower, and his slugging was also a little lower, and his on-base percentage was only 7 points higher than it was the previous year. He's only 25, and again, catcher isn't a super offensively demanding position, and his OPS plus was a 92 in 2023, so it's not like he was a slouch, but those numbers don't jump off the page, and he's probably destined to be an 8 or 9 hole hitter if he doesn't end up picking this up. His defense is part of the reason why he is such a successful catcher and top prospect back a couple years ago, but if he's not able to pick up this offensively, there's going to be some issues about finding him spots in the lineup. The A's have a lot of catching depth. You think of Tyler Soderstrom, who made his debut this past year, who is going to be playing a lot of first base, and now you have players like Daniel Susac in the minor leagues who are going to be pushing for playing time in the near future. Langeliers has a lot of competition, and he's going to have to increase his offensive production if he wants to stick around. Christian Pache was going to immediately step in and be the center fielder of the future for the Oakland A's, supplanting long-term center fielder Ramon Laureano. He'd already had a couple cups of coffee with the Atlanta Braves in 2020 and 2021, but really did not do great offensively, for a 119 batting average and a slugging percentage just below 210, which is abysmal. His OPS plus was also -4, which means he was 104% below league average in terms of OPS. That's just not good at all. Despite the struggles and the small sample size, MLB Pipeline still had him as the best prospect in the Brave system and in the top 35 prospects overall, while Baseball America had him a little more conservatively placed as the third overall prospect in the Brave system, but still in the top 100, slotting in around the 85 range. As the A's basically full-time center fielder in 2022, he did not run away with the job at all. The 166 batting average, 218 on-base percentage, and an OPS plus of 35 that coincided with a 459 OPS, things just were not looking good for Pache in the future. On the Braves, he was going to be the center fielder of the future, even with Ronald Acuna Jr. and players like Michael Harris, and at the time Drew Waters coming up at the wings. Pache was a better defender than all of them, and people were really excited about the prospect of him being the center fielder, patrolling center field, just like Andrew Jones did 25 years ago. Unfortunately for Braves fans, that didn't work out, but Oakland really thought that'd be the case. And you can look at his numbers to show it. According to Baseball Reference, his offensive wins above replacement in 2022 was -0.7, but he had a positive defensive side of the ball with the 1.1 defensive wins above replacement. So he had a good year. He was above average simply because his defense was that good. But there was a little bit of dilemma for A's fans and for the A's front office as well. Most people are familiar with the option system, where a team can option a player down to the minor leagues 3 times before they're required to stay on the 26-man roster unless they're injured, or they must be designated for assignment. Whole bunch of jargon there. But basically what I'm trying to get at is Pache had already used 2 of his options. In 2020 and 2021, the Braves had demoted him to the minor leagues while having him on the active roster for part of the year, meaning 2 of those options have gone away. When he got traded to the A's, well, they also demoted him for a little bit to try and get him back in rhythm, and that meant he'd have to make the opening day roster starting in 2023. Well, unfortunately for him, he didn't cut it. They ended up trading Pache to the Philadelphia Phillies after just 1 year for Billy Sullivan, a minor league reliever. This was something that really caught A's fans off guard because Pache was going to be the centerpiece of this deal, a future star, and the A's aren't even going to be good. So what's the point of trading him away when you know you're not going to win? So play him, figure out what you have, and no offense to Billy Sullivan, but the value of a former top prospect, if you really just think you're going to give up on him, that's fine, but why would you do that if you just acquired him as a centerpiece of a deal for a superstar just a year prior? This was really confusing and just goes to show you how bad the A's front office is and how bad the A's ownership is at times, or most of the time, especially now with a lot of other issues that A's fans would be happy to not talk about. I hate to even bring it up because A's fans are going through enough, but Pache actually put together a decent season in Philadelphia. He only played in 48 games simply because there was a lot of outfield mess in Philadelphia. If you look at Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos, Brandon Marsh, who I have a video of right in that top corner, Jordan Rojas, a lot of players that needed playing time, and Pache ended up getting hurt as well. So there wasn't a ton of space to go ahead and play him. But you can see the numbers on the screen right now. His on-base percentage rose by over 100 points, his slugging by over 150 points, and his OPS plus was league average. Where did this come from the entire time? The Phillies, a playoff team with a ton of outfield depth, had to keep Pache on their 26-man roster the entire year unless he was hurt, and they still did it. So why couldn't Oakland? What did he unlock when he went to Philadelphia that the A's just couldn't get out of him? This might be more of an organizational problem than it is a Pache problem, but that is beyond the scope of my pay grade. Although I love talking prospects, the A's are a mess of an organization, and I do feel bad about any player that does end up going there, whether it be under their own volition or not. And I say this as someone who roots for the A's more than I'd like to admit. Fortunately for A's fans, there's some hope still. Joey Estes is probably the best example of that. He really wasn't the biggest piece in this deal. He was a top 15 prospect in the Braves system according to MLB Pipeline, but pitchers never really turn out. And out of high school, a 16th round pick in 2019, there wasn't a ton of hype for him to become a superstar player, but he's slowly but surely risen up prospect ranks and might be one of the A's better pitching prospects in the minor leagues. The Braves were really high out of him coming out in 2019, but because of signability concerns to Long Beach State, he fell really far until the Braves scooped him up again in that 16th round, where they signed him for just under $500,000, which means they had to take from their bonus pool from the first 10 rounds and assign it to Estes, which is a big ask for a lot of teams. He quickly proved that he was a very solid piece, and at age 17, he earned Low A Pitcher of the Year honors, and that's just really impressive for any player to do, especially out of high school, and especially considering that Low A has a lot of players who are right out of college, and after the draft, you have a new influx of players who are 22, 23. So the fact he's able to do this as a very young player is incredibly impressive. Although some of the base numbers haven't looked great, for example, in high A in 2022 at age 21, he put up a 4.55 ERA. His peripheral stuff has been really good, and that kind of helped the A's push him a little bit farther up the ladder. Estes started his 2023 campaign in Double-A Midland and did really well across 17 starts and 20 games played, a 3.28 ERA, and 100 strikeouts across 104 1/3 innings pitched. He was never a big strikeout guy, and he doesn't have a huge dominant pitch. His fastball is a little above average, his change is a little below with a decent slider, but he has decent control, and that's really what goes along with his repertoire. He's able to go and fill up the strike zone, and he's getting a better feel for his pitches with each ball he throws. And for right now, that's what the A's are content with. Getting him starts, seeing how he fares, and if he needs to move to a bullpen role, then he needs to. But as of right now, he's projected to be a starter, and he's going to be a quality one at that, if his prospect pedigree stands up to what it's become over the past couple of years. He struggled after getting the call-up at the end of the year to AAA, posting a 5.23 ERA, but again, the peripherals were really good, and the A's really liked what they saw out of Estes. He had just about the same strikeouts per nine in AAA as AA, and they were like, let's give him a shot. Called him up at the very end of the 2023 season, started 2 games and across 10 innings pitched. He has a 7.2 ERA and a 2.86 average against, so he's not doing too hot. Thankfully for the A's, he's kept his walk rate down. He's only walked 2 batters, so he's doing a really good job in that regard, but there still needs to be some improvement on there, but he's only 22. He doesn't have that dominant secondary pitch, and so that's what he's working on now, is refining those a little bit and getting a little more command and control over those pitches, because his fastball already plays well. He does good at locating that. So if he can go and refine that slider, refine that changeup, he's going to be a dominant starting pitcher in the near future. Now, is he going to be their best starting pitcher? No, I don't think so. I think that will go to Mason Miller, who is their best pitching prospect right now, also in the major leagues. He has electric stuff, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Estes as a number 3, maybe even a number 2 team, especially for the A's. He's going to be the 2 starter, so we'll see, but there's a lot of potential in that arm. The final player we'll talk about is Ryan Cusick, who was the Braves' first-round pick in the 2021 MLB Draft, 24th overall. He was a guy known for his insane fastball. It plays really well. Batters have a really hard time getting it, and it's just on the tick of being elite in my evaluation, and you'll see that across evaluation systems as well. You either have it as elite or right below. It's an amazing pitch, and he has a plus slider as well, which really plays into that starter's repertoire. The movement on his curveball and his control of them are a little bit close to average as well. So the fact he has 4 pitches in his repertoire that could very easily make him into a starter is something that's appealing and was part of the reason why he went in the first round. That fastball, again, is what people talk about, and it's that potential that really excites the A's and was why Cusick was part of this deal in the first place. He did end up with a broken rib during the middle of the 2022 season, which hindered his numbers a little bit. So we won't be talking too much about those there, especially because he did end up with a 7.12 ERA across 13 games played. So I don't really want to touch that, but in 2023, he made a pretty rapid ascent up. He started off in rookie ball for a game just to get him back up to speed, hit AA running across 22 games, where he posted a 4.77 ERA, but after he made the jump up to AAA, he got rocked. One game, 2.2 innings pitched to a 16.88 ERA. He got demolished at his AAA debut. He's only 23, still a lot of time, a lot of potential, but that was definitely a warning sign, and you never know what's going to turn out. Cusick was definitely a high potential guy, and he did regress a little bit last season after the broken rib and hasn't fully recovered from that, but there's still a lot to be excited about. He has a mix to be a starter, and if things don't work out, he'll probably drop that changeup, keep his fastball, curveball, slider, and just end up as a reliever. Because that fastball plays really well, it could be a back-end role like a closer, but you don't really know yet, and there's still a lot of potential to see exactly where he's going to end up. But I'm sending good vibes and hoping that he can end up in a starting role because I think he'll be a solid player. He could also end up in a number 3 role. I think that's probably his peak. He's more likely to fall into a 4 or 5 hole slot than I think Estes is, but we'll see how that plays out. He just got to AAA. He's only 23, and at 6'6", 235, there's a lot of bulk on that frame that can go, and once he hones in his delivery, he could be a solid piece for years to come. Looking at this trade now, it's obvious to see that the Braves ran away with this deal. They knew what they had in their prospects, and they said, you want them, take them. Pache never panned out to be what the A's wanted, and the fact they cut him out after 1 year is just a testament to how little they believed in him. Obviously, he's having a little bit of a resurgence in Philadelphia, but who knows how long that renaissance is going to last. It is over a very small sample size of less than 100 at-bats as well. Langeliers is probably going to be a catcher for the A's for a couple more years. He'll start off 2024 as their starting catcher as well. He now has Tyler Soderstrom going and competing for some reps there as well, especially since Ryan Noda looked really good last year at first base. But we'll see. I wouldn't be shocked if he rotates between potentially DHing a couple days just to try and keep him fresh while people like Tyler Soderstrom take behind the dish. If you look at Estes, he has a lot of potential. He's really risen up and was someone people were really excited about ending the 2023 season. So although he didn't look great in his 2 games at the major league level, he has a lot of potential to go and be a good piece in the future and is someone the A's will be counting on in the long term. Finally, Ryan Cusick is someone that the A's probably didn't expect to see fall this far off. That rib injury really did stunt his growth and development a little bit. So it is a bit unfortunate, but injuries are part of the game, especially when it comes to pitchers. So if that's how it ends up, that unfortunately is just how it ends up for Cusick. I think he'll make his major league debut. How effective he'll be, who knows? But he has that potential, and sometimes that's all you can really ask for. Again, Matt Olson definitely ran away with this deal. One player will far exceed the value of any of the 4 players the A's got. So kudos to the Atlanta Braves for going and winning this trade. It's impressive to do, and they're competing for a World Series this year because of it. Thank you for watching my video. I know this one is a little bit longer than some of the other ones. I really went into detail here because I am an A's fan and this really hurt, but it was something I wanted to do to kind of release some of the stress that the front office has given me. So you have 2 videos here on the corner. Go ahead and hit one of those if you want to watch another video of mine. And there's also that baseball again in the bottom right corner to subscribe. If you made it this far, might as well do that and keep supporting my channel and get more recommendations like this. Thank you, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next video.